The most terrifying punishments during the Persian Empire. Dive into the depths of the past and prepare for a spine-tingling exploration of the most terrifying punishments during the Persian Empire. Do you have any idea how vicious they can be? What impact did these punishments have on the ominous history of the empire? Do you have the courage to learn the shocking truths that have sent chills up the spines of the bravest individuals? As a rule, the Persian Empire was very fair. When deciding on a sentence for a crime, they used precise and thorough guidelines. They held that no one should be put to death for a first offense and that all of a criminal's positive attributes should be taken into account when making a decision on punishment. Someone should have deserved to suffer if that was what was going to happen. If you deserved it, though, the Persians would not let you off the hook. They devised some of the most ingenious and gruesome punishments ever. Sometimes, justice in ancient Persia was more like the slow, excruciating torture of your worst fears. Skin chairs. King Darius wanted to punish Persian judge Sismenes for taking a bribe. Darius felt Persian courts should be impartial and fair. He would ensure Sismenes' successor didn't repeat the error. Sismenes' death was just the beginning. After his throat was severed, Darius had the executioners remove his skin and manufacture it into human leather. He had them sew this skin into a chair. The new judge would then sit on a flesh chair. Worse, Sismenes' son replaced him. As Persia's judge, he had to sit on his father's flesh every day. King Darius believed a bribed judge would never forget what transpired. Drowning in ashes. Ancient Persia's deadliest death was suffocation. It was reserved for severe treason and god-destruction offenders. It horrified. The Persians had a hollow tower filled with ashes and wheels. The culprit was flung into a sliding platform at the top. He fell into the tower's center. The ashes would keep him alive long enough for him to die slowly and brutally. Executioners turned the wheels. Men outside would swirl the ashes into the convict's nose and mouth. He died suffocating on burning ashes. The Bible even mentions it. The Persians execute a corrupt Jewish priest in the Tower of Ashes. His family cannot bury him. The Bible concludes, and that was just what he deserved. Drinking molten gold. When Persian warriors caught Valerian, he died horribly. His death resembled Game of Thrones. The truth is considerably worse. Shapur enslaved Valerian. He paraded him before his army, chained. He humiliated him. Shapur used Valerian as a stool before mounting his horse. When bored, Shapur killed his toy. Valerian drank molten gold. He taxidermied the Roman emperor. Valerian was skinned, stuffed with straw, and displayed in a Persian shrine as a bar of gold and a human remains trophy. Tree-splitting people. Later, Persia punished thieves horribly. Torn in two, thieves and harassers on empire routes were executed. Executioners would bind the tops of two trees as close as possible. The inmate was dragged over and tied to each tree. They then severed the tree's cord. The two trees would break apart at extraordinary rates and shoot upright with the criminal still tied to them. Force would split him in half. Two parts of the man would then dangle from the trees in a second. The road where he robbed an innocent person would hold his body. The Persians thought that passing through these areas would remind robbers of their fate. Stone crushing. Persia sought to be fair about its crimes, but social status was not ignored. The monarch and his family could get away with anything. King Artaxerxes II slaughtered his servants rather than execute his mother after she murdered his wife. Statera loathed Artaxerxes' mother, Parasitis, and vice versa. They had to act cordial in public, but they sought to kill each other so regularly that Artaxerxes had to make rules to prevent it. To prevent poisoning, he ordered that everything they ate be split in half and shared. It failed. Parasitis had her servant poison one edge of a knife and cut the meat, poisoning Statera's half but not hers, and it killed the queen. Despite knowing who was responsible, Artaxerxes couldn't kill his mother. He tortured all her servants into confessing. He smashed the meat cutter's head with a rock. Parasitis was exiled. Artaxerxes invited her immediately. Parasitus helped Artaxerxes marry his daughter. Chaining dismembered people to gates. Persia and its neighbors often cut rebels' noses and ears. Brutal torture didn't always kill. Sometimes they save you. Sometimes it was worse than death. King Darius warned the people that what would happen if they rebelled again. He captured the rebel commanders and hacked off their noses, ears, tongues, and one eye each, but he didn't kill them. Not yet. Rebel commanders were chained to his castle's front gate so passers-by might view their maimed bodies. Their lieutenants were beheaded and hung from the fortress. For weeks they were jeered and battered by passers-by, staring at their friends' corpses and in great pain. And then after that they died. Celebrating your people's murder annually. Magi were Persian Zoroastrian priests, religious leaders, not magicians. After one of them overachieved, their careers were miserable. Smerdis, a Magi, deceived the people into crowning him king of Persia. He was a beloved king. He eased taxation and military conscription, but he usurped the crown and had to die. People killed Smerdis after learning. They went through the kingdom spreading the message and killing every Magi they could find. After the massacre, people made it an annual event. The Persians celebrated the slaughter of the Magi annually. They would rampage through the streets on Smerdis' anniversary and mercilessly slay any Magi they found. Letting insects eat you, or scaphism, may be the most famous Persian punishment, but the list would be incomplete without it. Few tortures match. The king only tortured his enemies. The victim was stripped naked and placed in a hollowed-out tree trunk or two boats with his head, hands, and feet exposed to the sun. He was then force-fed milk and honey until he had diarrhea and was buried in his own filth. His torturers used honey to attract insects. Wasps would sting the criminal till he prayed for death, while bugs would slowly eat his flesh. However, his torturers would force-feed him to prolong his life. The victim's cognition would degrade after a few days, but he would live. His death may take weeks. The victim prayed for death for 17 days before they succeeded the first time. 3 deaths. The Persians believed some deserved several deaths. If their offense was serious, they wouldn't murder them once. They had to die 3 times before they could breathe. The sufferers would experience death 3 times without dying. When a eunuch angered Cyrus the Great's wife, she first ripped his eyes out. After he recovered, she flayed him. They healed him again before crucifying him. The monarch executed a soldier who claimed he killed Cyrus the Younger in combat when he just injured him. "Leave him to me," the king's mother said. She stretched him on the wheel for 10 days. She cut out his eyes and then killed him by pouring molten brass into his ears. Forced child consumption. Harpagus, a Median general, received the harshest punishment for the slightest infraction. King Astyages dreamed that his grandson would overthrow him, so he ordered Harpagus to put the child in the desert to die. Harpagus handed the kid to a shepherd who nurtured it as his own. Astyages was harsh when he discovered he had been disobeyed after 10 years. He chopped up Harpagus' son, roasted him, and served him at a banquet. Harpagus didn't realize his son was dead or what he was consuming. Astyages had his servants place the dead boy's head on the table in front of him and mock him. "Do you know what beast's meat you have eaten?" Harpagus recognized the consequences of retaliation. He couldn't cry in front of the monarch who killed and fed him his son. Harpagus had to answer, "I know, and all that the king does is pleasing." He praised Astyages' food and requested the rest. He returned home and buried his son's last remains. Those who were found guilty of heinous offenses were often subjected to severe forms of punishment, including blinding, which resulted in a lasting impairment, as well as a sense of shame for the offender. Mutilation, like the other gruesome punishments, served the purpose of demonstrating the extreme nature of the state's vengeance. Individuals who were sentenced to hard labor were subjected to labor that was so taxing it acted as a constant reminder of their previous wrongdoings. Another prevalent kind of punishment was exile, which consisted of individuals being ordered to leave their own area and relocate to remote and unfamiliar locations where they would be cut off from their communities and other support networks. Burning to death was a cruel method of execution that was reserved for criminals who had committed horrible deeds against the state or its rulers. This was considered to be the most severe punishment. These punishments were imposed during the time of the Persian Empire, and they were a demonstration of how rigorous and unbending their legal system was. As a result, fear and order were established throughout their enormous territory. Hey, thanks for watching. For more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel and check out these videos as well.